Hello, PHCC. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 15 of PHCC Rocks, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening all over America related to the National Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association. I'm Joel Long, your host, coming to you from the great state of North Carolina, which is the epicenter of PHCC for at least a couple more months. And we're really fortunate today. I'm really excited to have some incredible rock stars from Iowa with us, the heartland of the country, right?
That's right.
The best God's country. First, we've got Randi Malone, the executive director of Iowa PHCC with us. Welcome, Randi.
Hello.
Awesome. Randi's a little under the weather with COVID, but she's agreed to put up with us for a little bit. And Randi, we appreciate you can make it. There you go.
I can do it.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Really appreciate you doing this today. And I tell you, I personally, I am really excited to have Jeff Berndt with us. Jeff, and I'd hate to know, how long have we known each other, Jeff, now through PHCC?
It'll be 7 years now, I believe.
Yeah, served together on the national board. Jeff, we have a lot of people in PHCC that work extremely hard and are unbelievably dedicated. And then I think there's a level of people that are involved that are 3 or 4 steps above that dedication. And Jeff, you're one of those guys, and you're really humble about it. But I'm sure I'm going to hear from Randi, but on the national level, just what you've done, and I think especially you and I, being a zone director, us, together being a zone director, but then, your membership work, all the membership committee work that we did together and putting up with each other and trying to make the organization better. And that's a hard thing to do with a big aircraft carrier like National. So I wanted to thank you. And then I'm so glad personally that you're on this thing today.
Well, that means a lot, Joel. I appreciate that. I'm glad to be here.
And great hat, man. Look at that hat, man. That's awesome. But so guys, listen, let's get right into it. One of the things we've realized going through these podcasts all over the country is the stories. It's really interesting. People love the stories of how people got into PHCC. And so I'd like each of you to, talk about yourself a minute and give some background and how you ended up being so involved. Who's volunteering? Ladies first.
Oh, I'll go.
All right, perfect.
Well, I'm much to everyone's surprise, I'm sure I am not a plumber or an HVAC person. I know. I actually work for an association management company. And so we manage nonprofit and trade associations, and PHCC is one of my clients. They've been one of my clients for about 12 years now.
Your favorite?
It's been a while.
It's your favorite, but it's your favorite. Okay.
Why wouldn't it be? So I've been about 12 years. I started as an admin a long time ago, and then worked my way up. I was the apprenticeship director for 8 years. And then in July of 21, I took over as the exec.
Oh, okay. So you've seen a wide range of involvement with PHCC. And then I would assume you're being involved with other association that really helps you bleed over to see what we're doing, good, bad, and ugly and all that.
Yep. It works all the ways around with that. So it's nice because having other clients, I can also impart some experience of saying, that didn't really work over here, but maybe we could try this, that kind of thing. It's a good, it helps just kind of pre-check some of those ideas maybe that we come up with and gives us a baseline. So.
Yeah. And I tell you, talking to a lot of the execs, almost nobody, I don't know of anybody that I can think of that said, I'm going to go into the plumbing, executive director. So the journey is really interesting. I think the journey is always interesting when you talk to people that, and how much now they love it. And a lot of times it's people. They really have gotten down to, they just have fallen in love with a lot of the people that you're dealing with.
I went to college for political science and sociology, so not at all.
Where did you go to college?
I went to a small private college in Iowa called Central.
Okay.
And did not go to school for anything like this, but it just sort of worked its way in. And like I said, I've been with PHCC for about 12 years, and it's been good. It's lots of good people, lots of good learning experiences, and apprenticeship was its own crazy ride. So,
okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, listen, I appreciate that information. And that really explains a lot of how patient you must be knowing who you have to deal with. So Jeff, what do you got for us?
Well, I am a plumber, so I did start an association. I was fortunate to have my father-in-law, who at the time was a big supporter of PHCC and was one of the founding members of the Eastern Iowa chapter, which is what started it back in Iowa. Yeah.
Okay.
That happened to be back in the really early 80s. And we were an at-large state with just an Eastern Iowa chapter until that group of guys and gals decided to reach out to hire an executive director or a management company, which was DMS at the time, and which was who Randi works for. And we established in 93 was official. I think it started working on it in probably 91, 92, and established the Iowa chapter, which made the Eastern Iowa chapter a legitimate association or part of PHCC.
Yeah.
I started in the plumbing industry in 1994, and I immediately went to school through our association and graduated. At that point, I became an instructor for our school for PHCC of Iowa, and I taught class for, I believe, about 5 years. And after that, I gave up that position and kept working through the ranks here at Best Plumbing to becoming I bought out Jeff, or my father-in-law, back in 2009 and became the owner of Best Plumbing, which I've been running since.
Should I tell you how old I was in 1994, Jeff?
Yeah.
I hate you. I can tell. I don't like you, Randi. I can tell already.
I just turned 50, by the way.
Great.
Last October, I just turned 50. So
Amy, you met Amy earlier. She does stuff like that with me. Oh, really? 85. I was 2 or not. When were you born? She was born in 88. Yeah, I'll say things like, I graduated college in 1990, and she go, I was 2. I mean, that's great. Well, yeah. Okay. How old were you then, Randi? Go ahead.
I was 9.
There you go. Here we go.
I was born in 85.
I got a pretty interesting part of that of Jeff's, my father-in-law story. I kind of wanted to share with everybody about Iowa starting, and that my father-in-law was a big union guy. He actually taught school for the union, was in the union, and in this town in Cedar Rapids, you couldn't get a license. We had a license for the city at that time. You couldn't get a license in the metro area without having without going through an apprenticeship program. So the city of Cedar Rapids would not allow a plumber to come in here without going. The only place you could get a license or go through apprenticeship was through the union.
Sure.
And so back then in the late 70s, we were going through some hardships. There was a lot of work shortages. Inflation was high. I think we all know that, or we kind of know the time, right?
Randi does. The rest of it.
I wasn't there, but I believe you.
Well, he ended up being able to leave the union. The union agreed to let him leave, and 3 other contractors that were union contractors left as well. And those 3 knew in order to be able to get apprentices through a program, they had to establish one. And they put the work in, put their nose to the grind, and got with PHCC and got it done.
Yeah.
Well, I think that leads directly, a lot of that, when you start talking to people about how a state chapter or a local got started, it's almost always there was 1 or 2 or 3 people that needed something, or they saw the value, and then they started talking to other people, and they started or there was something specific like you're talking about that, man, we have got to change this a little bit, and we can make a positive change at the local level or the state level, and then it builds. That's a great story. You got to be proud of that.
I'm totally proud of it, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to try to follow in his footsteps. And that's why, I believe if you look in the membership directory, which I think is a kind of a cool stat as well, or kind of a cool fact, is that Best Plumbing has been a member of PHCC, and I think it's accredited to like 1981 or something in that membership directory.
Yeah, that's great, man.
It's awesome. So I'm proud of that. Really,
we didn't have Randi, in 81. We didn't have cell phones, so we had these anyway. Never mind. We had these anyway.
Hey, my kids they can't understand answering the phone without looking at the person.
Oh yeah.
They don't understand not having FaceTime. So
I want to go back to, I'm trying to get at my house to go back to the phone that mounts on the wall with the long cord.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, never mind. So one of the things too that's really, is really interesting. And you talked about it a little bit to me, is how old our trade association is overall, and then how different states have built what they're doing. Give us some data on your state association. Talk about where you see it now, what's going on. I know you said 93, getting started. And I think that's really good to bring up too, because, we're trying to start new chapters. And so, with us being such the oldest trade association in the country, often people in states think that everybody's been that old, and we've got the different states came along at a lot of different times. So Randi, can you give us a little bit of that?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of members right now, we have about 150 contractor companies. So we do company memberships in the state of Iowa. And so that's all, across the state. And we have associate members. And so that number has fluctuated kind of up and down over the years. And we've changed the structure here and there. So we have, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 of those plus a couple sponsors, and just trying to, we're not a very big state, but for not being very big, sometimes it's hard to get to everybody, because we've got, our good friends of way up in the northwest corner, and then people way over in the northeast corner. And so we hear that a lot of like, hey, you got to come over here more often. And so we're kind of sitting right there at that 150 mark. And, we know that there are a certain number of licensees in the state. I don't really know that we know what number of companies that represents, Jeff. I don't know that we've ever been able to fully figure that out. And I didn't want to make Jeff have to go, count the Google listings. So,
good luck.
Yeah, right. Well, and something we've seen here in Iowa, especially in the last couple of years with COVID, is there were a lot of shops, I think, that had shuttered because they had, some older members that were probably planning to retire anyway. Yeah. And then when COVID came, they were just like, I'm done. I'm not gonna do this anymore. So we've seen that a little bit as well.
Yeah, we've seen some consolidation too of members. Have y'all seen any of that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple companies that have kind of consolidated over the last probably 5 to 10 years. But yeah, seen all of that too.
So legislatives coming up, I was looking at your website, and it looks like you really have 4, when I look at your website, and I know the website doesn't tell the whole story, but there's really 4 main areas that just jump out at you when you look at your website that you focus on. And one of the main ones, I think, in talking to Jeff some over the years, is legislative. I know that's a huge focus for you guys. Talk about, what you guys are doing legislatively at the state level, and maybe tied to national some.
Yeah. Jeff, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
I can answer a little bit of it. You can jump in and see as you see fit. But legislative wise, the PHCC has done a great job. I feel like in representing our members to get things done at the capital level. And we sponsored with the ABC and with the union to get a statewide license. That was a big deal back in 2009 or 8 or not.
Yeah, 8. It was 9 and implemented in 10. Yeah.
There you go. So that was a huge deal for us, a big win, and to be able to collaborate with the other 2, what I would call players in our industry around here. We've been fortunate financially to have the means to hire a lobbyist, which his name's Eric. I can't pronounce the last name.
Goranson.
Goranson, there you go. Anyway, Eric does a fantastic job. He keeps us up to date. He's given us, monthly reports and anything in between that he seems that we need to be on. We have a great membership and a great board that likes to jump on. We'll go to Capitol Hill, represent our association, which is awesome. Yeah. So we have a lot of involvement in it, and we're looking at things that are right for our industry. And that's a huge benefit to even non-members in our state. I mean, they're getting the benefit of us going there and talking on their behalf as well. So it's great.
You're carrying the torch. You're carrying the torch for the industry with your 150 members for the entire state. And so I think that gets lost a lot of times. It's only a few people. You've probably got really 10 or 12 people that are actually doing everything. Is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. You know how that is. I mean, that's the same thing with about everything. We see it at every level.
Yeah.
I would say that I truly believe that on Capitol Hill here in Iowa, that they know who PHCC is, you know, and it's because we have a lobbyist and because we're there. We're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Right now, we are currently working on a license on our licensing bill, currently working on some statewide inspectors.
Yeah.
And it's going really well.
Yeah.
And we're doing this, we're fighting an uphill battle with the makeup of the legislator right now, but we're making headway.
Well, Jeff, I think it's important for other states too that, you know, we've got some other states that are trying to move to get statewide licensing. So I think it's really good for them to hear that. I mean, that's recent news in my world in the long journey of our industry that in 2008, 2009, 2010, you guys got that approved. And then that led, I'm assuming, and I need to be careful, but I'm assuming that led to a lot of things with your education. Continuing ed, it led to stability for you guys more and more because you got tied to other contractors. You probably saw an increase in membership because of it long term. And so, I mean, it feels like a lot of times that's a long journey, but that's not that long ago, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, to
Absolutely.
get there, they were 10 years, I think, in the making of getting to the point of getting it passed in 2009. And then, you know, here we are 10, 12 years later, we're working on just now trying to get them to do inspections because that was always kind of the second piece of that. But we knew we weren't going to get them to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So we went with licensing first and then trying to follow up now with the inspections, which is another, you know, it does relate to that stability. It relates to apprenticeship because those requirements all come from those licensing stipulations.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, when I look on your website, you have, you know, you talked about, I see apprentices and continuing education and those kind of things. Talk about exactly what you're doing on the apprenticeship side. I mean, in Iowa, if you can.
Yeah. So Iowa's kind of strange because in a good way. Like Jeff mentioned, because the city of Cedar Rapids had that requirement of being able to have a license and you had to have training to get that license. We actually had an apprenticeship program pretty much, I don't know if it was before we had a chapter, but basically from the start, that's kind of where it all came from. And so I think we've been running an apprenticeship program for the better part of 25 years, at least. Probably 25, 30 years over in the eastern side of the state. And then when statewide licensing happened in 2010, we started a program in the capital city because now that it was statewide, we needed to expand and be able to really train additional people. And so we've been running those two programs since I've been involved, which is the last 12 years for sure. And both of those, you know, have been relatively successful. We've had, you know, I think when I very first started, our older apprenticeship numbers were like 50 students a year, 60, and now we're almost consistently between 180 and 200 every single year.
Oh, okay. That's
and so like this year we graduated 42 apprentices, and so that's kind of
all air conditioning, right? There's no plumbing.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't even remember what the breakdown was this year. It was pretty close to half and half, I think. But so we've had that, and we just recently this year, and this really came out of, I would say, the demand after COVID. We launched online apprenticeship with the help of National, because we're using the National e-program. And I don't know, maybe resist is the wrong word, but Jeff can agree. We've resisted online for quite a while.
Yeah, well, I think that's natural. Yeah, but I think that's natural in our industry. I hear that. Listen, we're not doing all. What are you talking about? You got to put your hands on it. I mean, that's how we operate. I mean,
and that's just it. Like the committee has always said, you know, how do you train someone to work in plumbing or heating if they can't put their hands on it? And that's like,
I was gonna say, I got dirty last night at the house. Okay.
Yeah.
I felt good about it. I was like, wait a minute, I got a little dirty. Yeah.
That's the repeated question over and over. And I think the committee overall probably still believes that that's the best way to go, right? That hands-on in-person training. but we also recognize that there are people and there are contractors who don't have time or money or staff. And so our goal was to, okay, if we can't get them in the door, what can we do to make sure that they're still getting some kind of training and still getting their people through what's needed for licensing? And that was kind of where the online came from, and that decision to go that direction. And that was, fairly successful. I think our first year, this year, we had 45 enrollees in the online program. So
more importantly, how many of those were not members prior?
Yeah, we had a good, I would say we probably got 10 new members from that, because we make them become members, right? And I would say we see that more as an investment, like it's a benefit to them to continue to be a member, because they get more out of it than just the 9 months that they're in apprenticeship or the 6 months that they're in apprenticeship. So so we saw some membership growth from that, and then some student growth from doing that as well.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Joel, she's going to sugarcoat this a little bit and be a little bit more politically correct, but I'm right here to tell you, our apprenticeship program is better than anything around this area.
Yeah.
Or hands down, we've got it. We nail it, and we love that our students are hands-on.
Yeah.
That's the best part of our apprenticeship program, and we need to do a better job of promoting it. I think we all agree, but we do a fantastic job. We have the best instructors, and we do a great job. Now, we were reluctant to do the online. However, when we got over that bridge, we found out that, I stole the line from you. We had to figure out who our customers were. Who are our customers? And once we figured out, once we kind of established who our customers were, whether we like it or not, and we don't think it's the best path, we have to offer products that our customers want.
Yeah, that's Jeff. That is really important in everything we do, every business. Our plumbing business, our air conditioning businesses, all that. We better understand that, make sure our perspectives don't limit us, and that's it can be dangerous if we're not careful. I know we do it. As long as I've been in my business, there's days when I'm going, please, I need to have a different perspective, because we do, right? We do. That's a great point, Jeff.
Well, and I think what's interesting is that we found, I know there's at least 1 or 2 companies that put their people in the online program only to come back and say, I don't think they're very good at this. Like, I don't think they're very good at being online. And we're saying, yeah, we know they probably might not be. It's definitely not for everybody. They have to be pretty self-motivated, and they have to be pretty determined to do it.
Yeah, we think that we've seen all over the country that they need different level of partnerships, especially when it's online. They need maybe a company person that's spurring them on, or they need a partnership there, because you're right. A lot of people will get lost real quick with it, or they get home and they're not as disciplined as they need to be to finish pieces and parts on time and those kind of things. And then we'll have guys that'll do a year and 6 months, and it's amazing how they're really good at it. So you got to figure that out. But Jeff, it's the same way with hands-on stuff too. It's really, you've got to stay in contact with them, and if they're getting a little bit lost, help guide them and mentor. We call it a lot of the mentoring pieces of that because you got to find out what triggers them to be successful, and that's hard. I remember. Well, I don't remember anymore. Randi will still remember what was 20 years old and 25. Think about it. And I think the world's moving so much faster now than it was when Jeff and I came along.
Our parents said the same thing, though.
Yeah, they did.
For our generation, you know what I'm saying? So it's another thing. One more plug I want to get. One more thing I want to say is that in '83, when those guys started, or they got the PHCC up and rolling, they did it for the apprenticeship program.
Oh, okay.
And so that was a big key. So they did have apprenticeship back in '83. I think officially, Jeff, my father-in-law, told me that in '83 was when they first started their apprenticeship program, but they were self-done, and it was a correspondence class online, completely online.
So it was completely online.
Yep, through PHCC, and they graduated guys through there and gals. And then I think a couple of years later, maybe 85, 86-ish, is when they actually established a school, a relationship with Kirkwood, our community college here, and they started teaching out of their school, using their facility, but hiring instructors to do it. And at that point, Eastern Iowa was only putting maybe, a total of we had plumbing and heating, but we had a total of maybe 40 apprentices.
Yeah, it was low.
Maybe 30 apprentices. It wasn't until the board of Eastern Iowa decided to, or those guys that started to make the Iowa chapter. When they made the Iowa chapter, we kind of struggled there for a while. We kind of still ran the Eastern Iowa chapter as the apprenticeship training, and then Iowa kind of still, they were there, but they kind of did the administrative part of it, I would say.
Yeah.
They did a lot of it. And we had some tough years and whatnot. But when we decided to dissolve the Eastern Iowa and go right to just be the Iowa chapter, and then we decided to relinquish our old executive director and turn everything over to DMS, and then have them, Randi, not them, but Randi, take over with Rick Gustin to do the apprenticeship program, was that when we grew it to 200 apprentices. We needed that.
Yeah.
We needed the help of them, and we needed that. And it would have never got there without that chain of events to happen. So Randi's being a little modest, she's gonna tiptoe around, but she's a huge part of the success of that program.
Well, thanks. It's good to see, and it's always fun for me too, because I've been able to get to know so many of the apprentices over the years. And so it's, I'm a very people person. So like, I care about, if they have kids or what's up with their family or things that are going on in their life. And so it's neat to see them get all the way through the program too, just because it's nice to celebrate their success. And that's one thing that we had to put a little bit on hold because of COVID, but we had been doing, kind of like a graduation-ish banquet, because these guys and gals deserve to be celebrated just like somebody who's going to graduate from college. It's just as important of an achievement, and they put in just as much, if not probably more, work to get to where they are at the end of apprenticeship than, someone like me who just went to college and, I didn't have to work 40 hours a week when I was also trying to go to school. So sometimes 60 hours a week. I know that a lot of these guys end up working.
Need to celebrate their journey. We definitely do. And sometimes we're not the best at that. As contractors, we're like, well, yeah, shut up and get in the truck. But I mean, we need to listen to
the first year that I invited contractors, they were like, why? I was like, what do you mean, why? You're supposed to come celebrate your person. They're like,
it's even better.
They're going to come back to the office. I'll tell them good job. I was like,
Randy, the other bad thing is I guarantee somebody had a conversation. Do we have to pay them? I mean, I guarantee we're not going to pay them, are we? But anyway, so, the other thing, guys, that's really good. It feels like you guys are also educating from the start to the finish. You guys it's not just the apprenticeship, you're continuing education with now the licensing and your workforce development. Everything I'm hearing is all you're giving contractors a format for that. For the entire career is what it sounds like too. Is we're looking at your website. It looks like you're working on that too.
That's the goal. I mean, some days it feels longer than others, but yeah. One of the big things we do for workforce development is we've been participating in an event called Build My Future. And it's a really big event that they invite like 5,000 high school students from across the state to come. And it's basically a big trade show, a big expo hall of a whole bunch of different opportunities and career trades. You've got plumbing and carpentry and HVAC and electricians and all these people there. They've recently expanded to like CNAs and medical side and also culinary. And so they have all these experiences that are non-traditional college. It's not the 4-year, it's not the 2-year. It's really more apprenticeable type applications. And so they come and they get to experience each one of these. They can walk around and everybody's booth has a different experience. So there were, companies that had heavy machinery outside and they were letting these high school kids drive this. I know, right? They were letting them drive this heavy machinery, not very far. And obviously someone was with them. The linemen had them climbing up a pole and, doing all this fun stuff. We did PEX piping with our side and they got to use the expander tools and they all think that's the most amazing thing in the world. And teenage boys are hilarious because you'll say, you get them to expand the pipe and put in the fitting and they'll say, oh, I can pull this apart, and they can't. And it's great. But that's been a really good event just because it's a lot of exposure. And I would say that it's not you're not getting hundreds of kids running to your business to apply right away, right, Jeff? That hasn't happened yet. But it's good because it's exposing those high school students to other opportunities that they really haven't been told about.
Oh yeah.
Well,
really what we see is what you start doing in reality is the guidance counselors and the parents start believing and understanding that there's a lot better path. And so they get down the road a little bit and they go, oh, $100,000 in debt and I'm still in the same place. Or I can go work for somebody like Jeff with Jeff and build a career that is transferable all over the country, and I'm earning as I go. And all of a sudden I'm a great part of our community, and it's starting to catch on in massive ways. And so and we're seeing that kind of stuff all over the country where all of a sudden people are excited about, the kids are excited about that opportunity. And I really think it's turning in a massive way. I'm sure you guys are starting to see it, but it feels like a longer journey, doesn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, we're behind, and we knew that in this industry to be that way. My selling point to parents or teachers when I talk to them is, you can get in, and I say, take for instance the plumbing trade, which I know something about, is that we can get you in a class in 4 years. You can come out with little to no debt. Most of the employers around here will pay for that schooling. You're going to make a wage, and it's going to be a staggered wage, and it's laid out in front of you when you sign up for the class. So you know what you're making based on these performance, hitting these timelines and performances. But the most important thing is that the average income, the average wage, starting wage for a journeyman licensed plumber across the nation, the United States, is $65,000 a year. Yep. No debt, and I can make $65,000 a year after 4 years.
Yep.
No, you start to get their attention when you say those things, when you get those numbers and you tell them. And
then after you guys train them, they can move to North Carolina where the weather's a lot better. So I didn't say that out loud. I'm sorry, but it is transferable. Like we've got one of our techs moving to Florida. He's getting married, but I mean, and I made one phone call and he's got a job, and so it's so easy.
Yeah.
And that's how we want to live too. And those things, and he doesn't have any debt. I mean, it's just a great career. So that's exciting. So some advice, and I try to get some takeaways to make sure that we connect those dots, would be that if you're not doing those kind of, and what did you call that program, Randi?
It's called Build My Future. It actually started in, I think, Kansas City in Missouri. And then a group here.
If in your state, I'm sorry. If in your state you're not doing that locally or at the state level, do it. Go to your colleges, go to your high schools, get involved and start doing some of those career fairs is what I think is maybe a general term. It's good stuff. So let's switch gears a minute. People want to hear about you guys individually more. So tell me some things that nobody knows about you that you can share, Jeff.
So, I mean, you say that nobody knows about me. I would say that a lot of people know this about me, but not my PHCC family. So
here we
go. People that are, especially at national, but I love golf. I play a lot of golf. I play a lot of competitive golf in the state here.
Do you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I carry a 0 handicap and I play a lot of golf. So
a way better golfer than me. I don't even try.
This thing's over, man. This thing's over. I'm done. Get off the call. You're a 0. You're actually a 0.
Yeah.
I hate you, man. Well, that's okay. Well, how did you get so good? You just have always been. You practiced forever. You went to. I mean, how did that's a 0 handicap? There aren't many 0 handicaps.
Yeah, so it's kind of a minority for sure. I started playing when I was a kid. I got introduced by a neighbor of mine, and he taught me the game. And then I played a little bit. I didn't play for high school. I didn't go to college, so I didn't play there either. When I got done with my apprenticeship, I was in the plumbing field. I just found some friends from high school. We reconnected, started playing a little bit, and then I've always loved the game. I was always decent. I was always not bad, and as I got older, I got a little more competitive with it, and then started, I really got the bug for tournament golf, and I just love playing competitive golf. So
I hate you, man. I'm a 12. I'm a 12. Before I had kids, I got down to like a 9, but the distance between a 9 and a 0, you might as well. Anyway, okay. But like, You know, I tell you, that 12 handicap, it stinks, man. Because Jeff, man, like this past Sunday, you know, I've had COVID, so I'm kind of weak. So I just played 9 holes. Through 8, I'm 2 over, and I had missed a birdie putt that I should have made. So I'm just 2 over, and I triple bogeyed 9. So it all evens out, man. You know, for the 12 handicappers, man, it all evens out. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
those zeros though.
I don't like that. So Jeff, keep that to yourself. And so I'm going to give the national golf. We're going to have a national golf tournament, and you and I. Okay, never mind. Keep that quiet, man.
All right.
All right, Randy. What do you got, Randy?
Edit that out then.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna cut that out. That's right.
I love true crime. I love it. Like, I can watch all the true crime shows all the dang day. My dad was a homicide detective for like 30 years. Yep.
Oh, no kidding.
And so I don't love like the gore, but I really like a good story and trying to figure out.
Like Blue Bloods? Do you like Blue?
Like no, like legit crime stories, like Making a Murderer, and like all these like legit documentaries of people that committed heinous, horrible.
So you're on the edge a little bit. So we need to be concerned about you. Okay.
Probably.
Right. Well, with your dad though being a homicide, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
Y'all talk. Is your dad still alive?
He is. Yep, he is. You know what's funny is one time in college I took a criminal justice class just randomly because I needed credits, and he came and he knew the instructor. So my dad came in and did a presentation, and the whole time I'm just sitting there, like shocked and in awe because he brought all these photos, you know, from crime scenes and this video from a suicide. I mean, it was like horrible, gory stuff, and I was like just staring at him, and I was like, I just can't believe that. And he goes, well, what did you think I did all day? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, but that is just like disturbing, but at the same time, intriguing to figure out how you match all the clues up to make it make sense, you know, to solve the crime. So
Jeff, you guys are in trouble. So let's switch gears a little bit too. I like also to ask if you could go back 20, what would your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give today? You know, what advice? Because this is always interesting.
Well, I don't have to go back as far as Jeff, but
2 years ago, what advice would you?
I wish it was 2 years ago. Oh man. I think that I would tell my 20-year-old me that chasing after the same success that other people have is futile. You really just have to focus on being yourself and doing what you can do in your job, in the role that you have, to make your own path.
Follow that, Jeff.
Yeah.
Pretty
Mine
strong.
would be
That's pretty strong.
Take every penny you got and put it in Amazon and Bitcoin. Huh?
His is probably better.
How do you beat that?
I mean, his is better for real.
So, but honestly, that question is, I wrote it down here because I don't want to forget it. So I would tell myself that anything is possible if you work at it enough. So I intentionally left out the part where people say anything's possible if you work hard enough. And the reason I say that is if you can work as hard as you want and you may not see success. Yeah. So it just, it becomes more of keep at it, learn from your failures, and work smarter, and you can achieve anything you want.
Yeah, I really like that. And boy, I really like that. And combining those two a little bit, you know, you make sure you understand what your definition of success is. Because I really see a lot of people that get tied up that they think it's somebody else's success is necessarily theirs. And it's just, there's so many ways to be successful. That's really good stuff. And so that was 20 years ago and 2 years ago for Randy. Okay, perfect. 30 years ago for Jeff and 2 years ago for Randy. Perfect. You know, the other thing, piggybacking on that is, you know, John Gordon came to Connect and is one of my favorite writers. I like simple. I need tied to things that I can relate to, and like the energy bus. You know, it's just such a positive story. But you know, how do you guys see coming out of the pandemic and all this, and you know, tying the national, staying positive and looking forward to positive things coming up? Are y'all seeing some of that? How positive opportunities are coming around?
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I've noticed from the pandemic is that it's actually harder to get people to volunteer right now because I think we all got really used to being in our houses and we kind of liked it a little bit.
Yeah, we did do some of that, didn't
We liked it. We liked not having to go anywhere and not being rushed. And so I think for me, when we're working on getting volunteers or getting people to join the board, you really have to present it to them as an opportunity that is something positive, because they're not, I feel like people are a lot more choosy about what they're going to give their time to, and they want it to be something that they're personally invested in. And so being able to highlight, you know, the things about that position that could be, you know, more of a personal investment for them, I think is key. And I think too, just as we start recruiting the next generation, like encouraging that positive leadership rather than like a sense of duty, like, oh, I have to do this, but more of I get to do this, or I get to be part of this.
You need to start going first, Jeff. Your answers pale in comparison. Berndt, go ahead. What do you have on that?
Well, I'm just amazed too. I'm just there listening. I was like, yeah, how do I beat
That's
that?
pretty good. Yeah.
Ditto. That's what you said.
My brother's 3.5 years younger, Jeff, and you know, we're opposites in a lot of ways. And I've realized, you know, people here at the company give me grief because I talk a lot more than he does. But what I realized is I have to talk first, because if he talks first, there's nothing left to say. And so I got it. There's nothing good to add because he covers it. He's smarter than I am. So anyway, I speak first and often, and then he goes, yeah, okay, whatever. Let me fix that. But what do you got, Jeff?
Mine's going to be, and I'm a little reluctant to say it just because I don't want to come off as someone that didn't care. But my positive coming from the pandemic was I realized what my biggest asset was in my company, and that was my employees.
Oh,
and I also learned that my second biggest asset was my customers. They stuck with us. They needed us. Our employees realized that they were essential workers, that they weren't going to have the same opportunities as some of their friends to stay at home, and they embraced it. They loved it. And you know, I've always treated my employees really good. I always felt that way. And I think if you would ask any of them, I think they would say the same thing. But during this pandemic, they had the opportunity to not work, go home, and every one of them chose to go to work, even though the risk was there. They wanted to work, and just kind of opened my eyes. That was a positive note that, hey, listen, that our greatest asset in this company are those guys out there driving those trucks and work. So,
yeah, that didn't come across wrong, Jeff. You know, I think that's a really good point in all of our businesses and our associations. I think we've realized a different, I wouldn't say, you got to be careful, different set of values, but maybe the importance of those values that we already knew were there, but because of sometimes the speed of what we get tied up into, we're going so fast, we're not paying attention. And I think you're right. I think it slowed us down to, you know, I got to, you know, one of the things I've loved this year is traveling to see different chapters and people. And, you know, I was in Maine, and then a couple weeks later, I was in Florida with people from New York. And, you know, you think that's a diverse difference, right? The only difference was that they were from Maine and New York. Okay. And, and it was amazing how emotional they were to be back together. And it was in both places, there was this emotional connection of just being together and the importance of each other. Cause, you know, a lot of times they hadn't seen each other, you know, they were finally getting back together. So I think, Jeff, I think you're onto something there. And then one of my favorite books is Raving Fans. And, you know, that book's about taking care of each other internally so you can take care of customers externally, is a lot of that book. And so I just think that's really, if you take care of each other, you can do just about anything. That's great stuff. Okay, let's end right there. So I want to do a couple other things with you guys. One of my big focuses this year, and I know Jeff already knows this, and I think most of us do believe this too, that are on the national level, that the PHCC national wins when the state associations win, and it's not the other way around. And I think we're talking about that more publicly, that it starts with the locals and the states. And so, you know, the states and the locals are our customers. you know, and so that's how we look at the National Association. And so you guys, you know, I know you're building things with national, you know, we're doing things together, we're partnering. I guess the first question for you, Randi, which PHCC staff member is your favorite? I'm just kidding, but sorry.
I'm still getting to learn some of them now. We've had,
Okay, just kidding.
had some transition.
Well, her answer, I can answer for her. Her answer isn't a staff member, it's actually a committee chair.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what it is.
What programs do you see, you know, with, if you can, with national that you really think have been a good partnership with you guys?
I think the member benefits are always strong, like as far as having that to lean on in addition to state benefits, I think is a big deal, because obviously, you know, as state chapters, Iowa's not a big state, and I don't have endless money. Ask Jeff, he's treasurer, he knows. We don't have endless money to do things. And so to have resources available from national is really important, because then it is truly, we're able to benefit from that, and our members are able to benefit from those things. That is not necessarily costing them more money. It's just part of the deal. And I think that's pretty great.
I'll piggyback on that and say that I think that's all absolutely true. And I think it's even more true for a new or an at-large association to lean on national to help get those, to get the things in play they need. Yeah. And I've seen it firsthand for associations, not ours, but others, when I was as a board member that needed help from national, and it was a hesitation. I stepped right up. A big one was Texas, statewide licensing in Texas. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That was a great moment in PHCC history.
Yeah, it is. You better believe it. And how the national board partnered with them to step up, and so yeah, and that fight continues. What do we maybe, if you had some recommendations on what we can improve, do you have any? Okay, moving on. Just kidding. I think that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. I think because it depends on the phase of life that your association is in. I think that associations have different needs at different times. And, you know, for the last couple of years, I think it's probably been COVID resources, honestly. Like, where can we figure all this out? And especially like representation at the federal level, because that's more a nationals game than us at the state level. And so to be able to have that is good. I think anything we can do to highlight the benefits of national, or the things that can trickle down to the state, is super important. And anything that we can do to make that clearer, not just to staff, but to members, is super important.
Yeah, there's some conversations about how we quickly connect new members, or maybe even existing, that we don't think are as connected to all the resources as they could be. Find their connection point. You know, we've got QSC, and we've got CCA, and we've got the UAC, and we've got all these different things. We've got Kirkhalter's classes. We've got all these apprenticeship. What is the trigger that a new member, you know, Jeff meets a new plumbing guy in Iowa and he joins? How do we quickly make sure we connect him with something that he's going to get excited about? You know, does he need a mentor that's been in business 30 years because he just got started, or what? You know, because people are quick to send dues in the first couple of years, and then all of a sudden they really haven't gotten connected, and then that's the worst place, I think, for anybody to be questioning. Hey, I'm sending $1,000 in, and I don't think I got my $1,000. Can you imagine, Jeff? You know, you and I at this point. And I don't know how much I'm sending every year if we add everything up, but the value of other contractors is amazing. Got so much. I feel like I get so much more out of it.
Yeah.
I think also it comes from being involved, though, too. I mean, part of that connection is being involved. And so it's going back to that leadership side of trying to get people involved so they can really feel the value.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, and it's hard to sell that membership, Jeff. We've talked about this a couple of times. Until you're in and you're involved, it's hard for us sometimes to translate that value. It really is.
Yeah. I think some people have that skill and some people don't. And some people want to be involved, but they're not big talkers and things like that. And there's just, it's all over the map. That's tough. we agree on a few things that, boots on the ground is where it's at.
Yeah.
That's how we get new members. That happens at the state and local level. One thing that I think that national can do that we need to do better on is some tangible items. And this is a we spent hours and hours talking about this, right? So one thing that I think would attract customers right off the bat for us or joining our association is having a national buying group that could buy vehicles. If it's through Ford, Chevy, whoever it is, we need that, and we don't have it, and a lot of places do. We have
vehicles, insurance benefits, legal services. I mean, all those things.
Yeah,
people ask us for, and those are the types of things that, as a little state association, I don't really know that I have very much power to go to the marketplace and say, oh, hey, my 100 members want to ask you about this.
Yeah.
But if it came at the national level, I think it's a different volume that is more paid attention to than what we see at the.
I like that. I've heard a lot of that, but I like that framework of the way you framed that too, Jeff and Randy. That's pretty good.
And the insurance thing, that was going to be a game changer for us. My last year on the board, we were getting ready to go full steam ahead. The current administration had opened that door for associations to have healthcare, and then quickly got tied up in court. So now we're sitting here in a court battle that could last years, and that just handcuffs us. But that was going to be a game changer for us.
Sure, it was. Yeah. So pushing the envelope on those kind of national programs and keep asking those kind of questions to get that kind of feedback, to keep driving, moving the aircraft carrier. And I think it's being where I'm at now. It's interesting how long it takes to do some of that. But we got to keep the pressure on and the focus. Maybe the focus is a better word, to stay focused on that. So good. That's really good. Anything else on those kind of things?
I just think that, I think Randy touched on a little bit too. Our Build America, Future America. What was it called again, Randy?
Build My Future.
Yeah, Build My Future. That event is super successful for the state of Iowa and getting into the schools. And I know that you get into the schools, and you might get, if they got 5,000 students, you might get 10 that enroll in an apprenticeship program in the plumbing or heating industry. But that's 10 that we wouldn't have had if we didn't. And getting that brand awareness for PHCC involved in that's huge for us. But at a national level, why can't a national start up some sort of program like that they could give to all? They could get someone to go through all the states. I mean, it's not cheap, right? I mean, we sponsor, so we sponsor that event, and there's different levels of sponsor that, but it just takes some legwork, but it can happen.
So connecting the dots on best practices state by state is really this, you and I've talked about that before. And I really like that with the AEC, how we can really be a clearinghouse on how to connect some of those dots. You guys are winning that battle.
Oh, I think we lost him.
He froze.
Hey, your internet, Joel.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Sorry. I said we were shutting down national because of bad internet connection while we were gone. Sorry about that. But I think, if there's a way to get a clearinghouse of, what's best practices in Iowa like that, and then share them state to state, it really is what the purpose of national in a lot of cases are, to connect all those dots. So that's great. That's great stuff. So guys, I think we're getting down to the end. I do like to, one of the things you do is talk about books. I think leaders, today especially, are looking at podcasts and reading books. And so do you guys have a book that you or like to brag about right now, or a podcast to share with everybody?
Well, the question that I prepared for was, what was the last book I read?
There you go.
And that was a book. I'm a nonfiction guy, so I like nonfiction books, biographies in particular. So I like to read other people's success stories and their failures through that. So I like to ride my bicycle, and I read a book called Half Man, Half Bike. It was a story about Eddie Merckx, and he's considered to be the greatest cycle racing guy out there. And it's an interesting story. He's from Belgium, and what he went through and what he did is amazing.
I've not read that. Say the title, the name of that, and the title.
Half Man, Half Bike.
Half Man, Half Bike. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think those stories can be inspirational. A lot of times I get finished reading those kind of books and I'm exaggerating. So a lot of times I end up going, I am not doing near enough. Like I've read some recent things on Elon Musk, and you get finished reading a little bit about him and you go, my Lord. I mean, it's amazing what he's doing. So, I mean, there's so many stories that's great. Okay. Randi, do you have something?
Well, I'm mostly a read for fun girl because I read enough during my political science major days that I don't care to read another nonfiction book in my life. But the most recent one I read that was just for fun was called The Midnight Library, and it was about pretty much like choice and regret and the philosophy of life. And it's this girl that has a near-death experience and ends up in this library, and you get to pick a book off the shelf, and it tells you what your life is if you made different choices. And so it was pretty cool. But if I have to go with like, something that's more serious, there is a book that's called Endurance, and it's about Ernest Shackleton and his crew that sailed down to Antarctica, and basically about his leadership skills and how they got stuck in the ice. And this is like back in the early 1900s. And so there are no cell phones and no one was coming to save them. And just basically how he kept persevering and ended up getting all of his crew rescued and out of there after 2 years stuck in Antarctica. It's a crazy, crazy story. So
we would have died. Jeff, we would have died.
Me too.
That's really good. Okay, so that's 2 great ones.
Well, they would have listened to your accent and said, "Boy, you're a long way.
You're dead. You're dead.
You and I'm making it.
You're gonna die." That's perfect. What accent? So the one I wanted to bring up today, and we focus so much on customer service that we just need reminders all the time. And we're with our company, we do my brother and I do a series of podcast projections with our leaders. And we're doing a book called The $6,000 Egg, the 10 New Golden Rules of Customer Service. And it's by Deb and Todd Duncan. And it's really the story of them going to their favorite restaurant, and they asked for something a little bit different after years and years and years and years of going there. And they told them no. And it would have cost them, they figured out that they were spending about $6,000 a year at this restaurant. And they told them no on like a 50-cent item. And they were devastated. And so they wrote this book on how not to do that. And so it's really an interesting going through these 10 rules. Part of it makes you sick because it's so simple, but it's back to Jeff, your focus on people. It's really, saying yes and figuring out how to take care of each other. And so I really like this book, and it's really a short book and it's got pictures. So it works out great for me. So guys, anything else, anything to add or?
I don't think so. Not for me.
Well, guys, I really appreciate the time. An hour. We've been on here for an hour. It's amazing how quick it goes. You guys were great, and Iowa obviously is in great hands. And Randi, thank you for all the work. The National Association is built because of the incredible people state by state, and the execs especially, and the work they do to build their state associations with their boards and their partners. And so that's how we win. And it's been an honor today to talk to you. I hope you feel better. You did great. You did really good today. And Jeff, as always, my friend, it's great to see you again, and keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Maybe he can teach you how to get to that 0 handicap.
There's no chance. Okay. I got to finish on that. So I got a really good friend that's about a 0 handicap. And I asked him one time, you're going to love this, Jeff. I said, man, show me how to spin the ball to back it up. And he started to, and he on this iron, and he said, this is like teaching a glider pilot how to fly an F-16. There is no chance. And I thought that was the best thing, best comment I'd ever heard. So guys, listen, really appreciate everything today. Appreciate all your hard work and the time today. And thanks for all the feedback. And guys, really, it's a great episode today. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@phccrocks.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests, and you can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, phccrocks.com. And please follow us on all your social media platforms. Spread the word. I really want to thank Randi and Jeff and the staff here, Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King at GSM Services, and of course, Charlotte Parham at PHCC National, which edits this program. I'm your host, Joel Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why PHCC rocks.